Rigging knots. In the last podcast, we talked about equipment and ropes. Now we're going to focus on the one thing that connects everything in your rigging system: knots. Because no matter how strong your rope is, no matter how advanced your hardware is, your system is only as reliable as the knot you tie. In this podcast, you're going to learn how to identify the different parts of a rope. You'll learn how to select the right knots for different rigging situations. And you'll learn how to tie, dress, and set the primary knots used in arboricultural rigging. Let's start with the basics. Before you can tie a good knot, you need to understand the anatomy of a rope. Every rope has two ends. The working end is the part you use to tie the knot. The standing part is the portion of the rope that is not actively being tied and usually carries the load. As you begin forming a knot, you'll create different shapes in the rope. A loop is when the rope crosses over itself. A bight is a bend in the rope that does not cross over. A turn is when the rope wraps completely around an object. A round turn is when it wraps more than once. You may also hear the term running end, which is another way of describing the working end. And the fall refers to the section of rope that is moving or being controlled, often by the ground crew. Understanding these terms is important, because when someone gives you instructions, they're describing how the rope moves and where the load is applied. Now let's define what a knot actually is. A knot is a structure formed in a rope to create a secure connection. But not all knots are the same. A hitch is a knot that attaches a rope to an object and depends on that object to hold. A bend is a knot used to join two ropes together. A loop knot creates a fixed loop in the rope. And a midline loop is a loop that can be tied in the middle of a rope without access to the ends. Each type of knot serves a different purpose. Choosing the right one is critical. Now let's talk about something just as important as tying the knot: dressing and setting. To dress a knot means to arrange all the parts neatly and correctly. A poorly dressed knot can slip, weaken, or fail. To set a knot means to tighten it properly so that it holds under load. If a knot is not set, it can shift when tension is applied. A good knot is not just tied. It is tied, dressed, and set. Now let's go through the primary knots used in rigging. We'll start with one of the most important knots you will ever learn: the bowline. The bowline creates a fixed loop at the end of a rope. It does not slip or tighten under load. That makes it extremely reliable and easy to untie, even after being heavily loaded. In rigging, the bowline is often used for attaching the rope to a limb. A variation of this knot is the running bowline. This creates a sliding loop. As the rope is loaded, the loop tightens around the object. This makes it ideal for securing limbs or logs. Another variation is the bowline on a bight. This creates two loops in the middle of the rope. It can be used when you need multiple attachment points without access to the ends. Now let's talk about hitches. The Clove Hitch is one of the simplest and fastest hitches. It's easy to tie and adjust, but it can slip under certain conditions, so it's often backed up with a half hitch. The cow hitch and girth hitch are similar. They wrap around an object and tighten under load. They are quick and effective for many rigging situations. The Timber Hitch is specifically designed for logs. It tightens under load and releases easily when the load is removed. This makes it ideal for lowering or dragging wood. The Marline hitch and half hitch are often used together to stabilize a piece. They help prevent spinning and keep the load aligned during lowering. Now let's talk about loop knots. The butterfly knot is a midline loop. It can be tied in the middle of a rope and can handle load in multiple directions. This makes it extremely useful in rigging systems where forces are not perfectly aligned. Endline loops, like the bowline, are tied at the end of the rope. Midline loops, like the butterfly, are tied in the middle. Knowing when to use each is important. Now let's talk about bends. A sheet bend is used to join two ropes together, especially if they are different sizes. A Zeppelin bend is a strong, stable knot that is less likely to jam under load. A slippery bend is designed to be released quickly by pulling the working end. These knots are useful when you need to extend a rope or connect lines temporarily. Now let's talk about friction hitches. Friction hitches are adjustable knots that grip the rope when loaded and slide when released. The Prusik hitch is one of the most common. It grips tightly under load and can be used for climbing or rigging adjustments. The Valdetaine truss, or VT, and the Machard truss, or MT, are more advanced friction hitches. They allow smoother movement and are often used in more technical systems. These hitches are critical in systems where adjustability is needed. Now let's talk about slip knots. A slipped knot is tied in a way that allows it to be released quickly by pulling the working end. This can be useful when you need to retrieve your rope or quickly disconnect after a load is lowered. But slipped knots must be used carefully. If they are not properly secured, they can come undone under load. Now let's talk about spliced eyes. A spliced eye is a permanent loop formed by weaving the rope back into itself. Unlike knots, a splice maintains more of the rope's original strength. This makes spliced eyes ideal for high-load applications. But they are not adjustable like knots. Now let's bring everything together. When selecting a knot, you need to think about several things. What type of load will it withstand? Will the load be static or dynamic? Does the knot need to be adjustable? Will it need to be untied after loading? You also need to consider bend radius. When a knot is tied, the rope bends sharply. This reduces strength. Different knots reduce strength by different amounts. This is why choosing the right knot is not just about convenience. It's about safety. Let's walk through a real-world example. You're rigging a limb for removal. You choose a running bowline to secure the limb. You add a half hitch further out to control rotation. You dress the knot carefully. You set it firmly. As the piece is cut, the system loads smoothly. The knot holds. The piece lowers under control. That's the result of choosing the right knot and tying it correctly. Now imagine the opposite. You tie a knot quickly without dressing it. You don't set it properly. The load shifts. The knot tightens unevenly or slips. Now your system is unpredictable. And unpredictability is what causes accidents. So here are your key takeaways. Every knot has a purpose. Understand the difference between knots, hitches, bends, and loops. Always dress and set your knots properly. Choose knots based on the load and the situation. And remember, your system is only as strong as the connection you tie. In the next podcast, we're going to apply everything you've learned so far. We'll move into basic rigging. You'll see how these knots, ropes, and techniques come together in real rigging scenarios. Because knowing the theory is important, but applying it is where skill is built. You've been listening to the Arborist-podcast. Our goal is to grow our collective knowledge, one domain at a time. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to help us keep this momentum. Until next time, let's keep growing this community together.